sponsored by War Thunder. If you like torture or games made while high on drugs, then close this video and play Get Wrecked instead, cause it's free and yes, that's what the game's called. There will be spoilers ahead. Can't believe I'm saying that for a racing game. Wrecked at first comes off as a low effort Wipeout ripoff. Air brake handling, side shifts, and weapon pickups. Only 2 ships in the campaign with events that very quickly get repetitive, but then things start to get weird. There's a chase game mode where the AI ends up crashing half the time, giving you the win, and here's Wipeout zone mode where the accelerator is stuck down and the ship gets faster over time. Except here you're driving in a dark, haunted city, and there are zombie ships trying to kill you. Look into the sky for a light beam and drive over it to restore energy. It's an endless chase in an open map, and it's got such an atmosphere. Wait, no, I didn't say that. I don't want vibes in racing games, I want gameplay. Here's a suicide race mode where half the grid drives the course in reverse. Except the max grid size is 7. If you collide with an oncoming racer, both of you die, race over. This is where the game starts to get frustrating and adds new twists to events, like make sure the specific opponent wins the race. Now you can try to eliminate everyone around him, but more than likely, you're gonna reset the event until you get lucky and he comes first by himself. Here's another one where the camera is fixed on top of the track and you can hardly see yourself. Thankfully this is a suicide race, so you just reset until the 6 other racers crash into each other, making you the winner by default. You start to see a pattern now. Here's an event where you're forbidden from touching walls, or the ground, or the roof, or after a finish line. Funny how this game and other Wipeout clones are incredibly forgiving in regards to wall riding, when Wipeout itself is the opposite. The next ones are nothing unexpected. Finish in 3rd, kill X opponents, and win with limited energy. But here comes the worst offender of racing game modes, the elimination. And to rub it in, there's a roast ball that shit-talks whoever's in last place.
Rage quit incoming, you are so funny.
Killing them the moment they cross into the next lap. No matter the game mode, the game kills whoever crosses the finish line for lols anyway. One event is seemingly bugged, killing anyone crossing into the final lap, making the event unbeatable. That's what it says, but actually, you're supposed to reset right after the line to fool the game's elimination turrets. This was the first of the game's several riddles, and you can't play the next event until you solve one. My AI boyfriend and the 2 humans in my livestream couldn't figure it out, so I asked the developer, and he made a whole guide. The solution is to insert a flash drive into your PC. Literally pay to win. Here's a time attack that to complete, you have to set your system time to evening, because that's when the event takes place. Does that make sense? The countdown bugs out in the next event, delaying your start. Good thing you can reverse into a hidden shortcut. Also, the countdown bots break all the time, making the metal hit sound effect and ruining your starts from time to time. To unlock the next event, you have to verify the game files from Steam, and here's one where the controls are inverted. You can cheese it by remapping, but that won't work in the next event where the inversion happens randomly. Here's one where the ship veers to the right, another where you have to finish a race in 2nd person view, the next one is stay close to an opponent, a fake game crash and blue screen, and finally finish a race blind, with the help of a pickup that gives you a tiny bit of vision. The offensive weapons consist of auto lock and good luck hitting anyone with it. With some ships you can absorb power-ups to regain energy and use it to spam side shifts instead. Oh please, not again! Anyways, we didn't arrive at the final chapter of this story. Yeah, that's what the event descriptions are for. The game references and ties in with Slipstream GX, which is the project that eventually turned into Ballistic and... Why am I talking about lore in a racing game? The next event forces you into quarter bit mode. You can see that they've ran out of ideas here and started playing with engine sliders, while also being high on something probably. Either way, his ghost is easily defeated in the next time attack. So in response, the next event drops a tactical nuke. Looks like we woke up in War Thunder. War Thunder is the most comprehensive vehicle combat game, featuring over 2,500 land, air, and sea vehicles spanning a century of history, from the 1920s to the modern era. Feel every hit with unparalleled realism thanks to one of gaming's most sophisticated damage systems, with every vehicle being meticulously modeled down to each individual component. Beyond the incredible detail, you can customize your arsenal with numerous camouflages, historical markings, or even community-made skins. Join the ever-growing community of over 95 million players in chaotic PvP battles. My favorite thing about it is the game mode diversity. You can go from a more laid-back experience in the arcade mode to the intense challenge of the authentic simulator mode. War Thunder delivers the ultimate combat experience with optimized realistic graphics and accurate sound effects. Play War Thunder for free on PC, PlayStation, Xbox, and mobile devices by clicking the links in the video description. If you're new or haven't played for 6 months on PC and consoles, you'll also get a huge bonus pack including premium vehicles, in-game currency, and more, available for a limited time only. Anyways, to avoid the nuke, you have to hide in a cave present in the track, and this is the only riddle I managed to solve by myself. Every other event, I had to resort to the guide that the dev insists you avoid it, as that would take the challenge away. But let's be real, only the lore obsessed vibats who read the generic looking description for every event are going to figure out the riddles, and most of the challenges boil down to resetting until you get lucky. The next event had invisible mines that are supposedly only visible in the photo mode. Where's the photo mode? Still wondering. But it doesn't matter, just brute force it like every other event. The next one you have to play with frame rate capped to 10, then you get extremely short render distance, and then your screen is turned the right way up. No, don't make a stereotypes joke, just be the second to last event that turns the game into pixel slop. I mean, stylish indie game with soul and soul based. After everything's done, you have to wait 2 days and come back to a broken main menu where the final event appears. The game randomly pauses, then baits you into thinking it paused again when it's actually running, your ship disappears, the track disappears, and we're thrown back into the menu. But the only working option is deleting your save data. Of course the game's trolling, the button trick is an ending cutscene that likely no one's ever watched, giving us a glimpse into the development process. For some reason the dev noted that one of the ship AIs was voiced by a singer. Except, you only get to drive 2 out of the 7 ship teams in the whole story. And here's what they tell you.
Got wrecked.
It's not any loss, the ships all handle the same anyway. They try hard to align themselves with the floor, which isn't a good mix for the game's low poly design. No life leaderboards exist, and the only person on most of them is the developer. Multiplayer is dead obviously, but it exists, and since the game is free, I got to play it with 3 other humans. And it worked. Barely, and only once. Every lobby after that became invisible, and the game is already buggy enough, you don't want to throw lag into the mix. The little good this game has is obscured by a lot of suffering, but it has one thing that every other AGR in this video lacks. Someone tried. Someone wanted to make a game that stood out. Which is more than it can be said for the shovelware you're about to see. Yeah, let's get on with the actual video now. This is part 9 of the Anti-Gravity Racing series. Except it isn't really. Some of the games we've looked at don't even have a concept of gravity, practically turning them into 2D games. And the reason is simple. Making a 3D game generally requires more effort, which is why they develop games like Velocity G instead. I shouldn't have included this for the same reason I didn't include the likes of Ballistics, along with many other early 2D games. These legacy racing games eventually evolved into runners and are nowhere near comparable to even the most basic 3D racing games. All you do in these games is go left and right to dodge obstacles in a straight line. The vehicle, if you can call it that, can only be controlled in a single dimension and has no physics-based properties. The corners and elevations are just a visual trick, and this game is no exception in that regard. So no, sci-fi aesthetics and futuristic looking spaceships don't automatically transform your game into an AG racer when your gameplay is Subway Surfers. Next up we have Antigraviator. Once again, there's almost no gravity at play here despite what the name suggests, rendering the ever-twisting tracks pointless with the awful camera only compounding the issue. This, combined with the bare-bone physics, make this award-winning game a headache to play, and its split-second-like trap gimmick does nothing to redeem it. Next up, we have what is essentially a re-release of Velocity G that for some reason took 3 years to come out and improves on nothing. You're likely already familiar with this rampant, shameless recycling of pre-made assets. For example, it only took 3 months for the Minicars Race Creator asset to be ripped off and re-released on a storefront as Aero. But anti-gravity is such a dead genre, it took 3 years for someone to do the same with the Complete Hover Racer asset. And all he did was remove the complete from the name. What you have left is a basic, generic racing game with so little content that it had to be padded out with unfair AI. The next game is the exact same thing, with different ships and tracks that are also likely stolen assets. For some reason, the shovelware merchant behind this one thought it would be a brilliant idea to blur the entire screen every time you hit a boost, while the next one had the sense to at least replace the stock soundtrack and separate acceleration and steering from the same analog stick. Otherwise, it's the same thing. If for some reason you want to try these asset flops, you can download it for free from the original developer. Yeah, you don't have to get it from the guy who renamed it to Anti-Gravity Racing. They're giving the whole genre the middle finger and naming their game after it. Now this garbage shows up when you search for Anti-Gravity Racing. This is the real harm of low-effort asset ripoffs. They steal visibility from good games. The best AGR of this video wasn't even on my list, only added once its developer notified me about its existence. And I shouldn't have had to scroll deep down the racing category to find Ballistic NG. It should have been in one of the 9 recommended spots that Aero currently occupies. Please fix. Still, could be worse. Enter Ace Anti-Gravity Combat Racing. Sound familiar? This has to be the slowest racing game ever made. Even after all the upgrades, I only managed to hit nice kilometers an hour. Still too fast for mainstream journalists, that's why they added autopilot. It's just a curse mashup of stolen assets. Like, what are these characters doing in the menus? I had no idea Nintendo eShop had more slop than Steam, but I'm sure it's still nothing like a Play Store, where you can find Antigraviator. It also has a sequel on Steam and uses the most basic handling imaginable. You can move forward, backward, and rotate on a flat 2D plane. That's it. The ship you see here is just for show and has no relation to the gameplay. The dev thought we wouldn't notice, but we did. The next game won't even open, but according to Obey the Fest, it's another generic acid drip. And I'd like to use this opportunity to take another detour because we need to talk about Obi. This man's written over 18,000 Steam reviews and counting. Most of them are from the last few years, quite lengthy, and likely not AI generated. There's surprisingly little information about him online. I just wanted to admire his dedication. Back to the video. The next game tries to put the previous asset to good use. You might remember it as a standout amongst a sea of shovelware in an older video of mine, making me go too easy on it, but the overall conclusion remains the same. The game's basic air brake handling is not a great fit for its very creative tracks, and for some reason the best one crashes now. It's still buggy, but the aliens running around the track totally make up for it. Here's another game from that video. This one's responsive handling has only gotten better with a Hall Effect gamepad. It still needs a lot of work and the progress is very slow. Next we have Ace Speeder's sequel, a game where the only control is steering, and for some reason it got a remaster so lazy it uses Unity's default buttons. Next, a game where you shoot down a ball that's politely running laps around the track. Next up we have Future Aero Racing S Ultra. I genuinely cannot come up with anything to say about the last few games that hasn't been said already. This one's just a below average floor hugger. And no, anime speedlines and cell shading doesn't automatically equal good game. I'm serious. Well, that's just an inevitability going over every game in a niche genre, so let's deviate a bit and try newer ideas. Starting with a game that is currently unobtainable media. It was delisted for unknown reasons and CD keys are nowhere to be found. Its obscurity also means that we have no publicly available game dumps, just a bare bones demo. The gameplay revolves around a tracer flying around in 3D space leaving a trail of road behind him, with the chaser driving on the said road trying to catch him. There's a slightly more complete game built on the same idea that unfortunately suffered the exact same fate. But not before I bought it! Now I can finally do something useful in my life and preserve a piece of gaming history that absolutely nobody cares about. God damn it, it's online only! At least that means all the crypto NFT slop will also go down with the servers. They're still up as of writing, but who knows for how much longer. The game was abandoned at a very early stage, and although buggy, the gameplay is promising on the only available level. The tracer has to collect orbs and make chasers crash by flying around the buildings, while the chasers collect power-ups to close the gap and eliminate each other. Whoever catches up becomes a new tracer. I can't find any other game using the same concept, so let me know if you do. Next, we have a time attack obstacle course that heavily recommends you use a gamepad, as playing it with keyboard can apparently lead to nervous breakdowns. And I took that personally. Having recently delved into this very topic, I got to testing right off the bat. And they're right, keyboard is slower here. Because they made it worse on purpose. Gamepad turns faster with the same amount of input. This might have been an attempt to give keyboard more precision, but the game rarely needs it. And even then, gamepad's accuracy is kneecapped by a massive forced dead zone on the analog stick. I countered it with remapping software, then tried to chase the leaderboard on its second map, which revolves around minimizing your steering inputs. The game felt inconsistent with its timing overall, a suspicion I later confirmed by adjusting the framerate on a later track, which resulted in marginally faster times. But we're not done yet, because the game features pitch controls while in air, and here, keyboard is better. This is because holding diagonals on a keyboard will register 100% input over both axes, whereas a modern circle gate joystick will only manage about 75% when held diagonally. This means keyboard gives you more maneuverability, letting you turn and pitch harder. You can fix this with remapping tools, but you shouldn't have to. It's a widespread, easy to fix problem that many games, even well-known ones, completely ignore for some reason. That's one thing F-Zero GX did right despite being console exclusive. Overall, Stay Safe has some nice levels and is a great example for how not to handle input devices in racing games. It intentionally sabotages keyboard to brag about it being slower and fails horribly at it. Meanwhile, Driftforce tries to level the input device playing field by offering proper self-centering mouse steering. I didn't find it helpful though. This is an endless game where you mostly need quick inputs to dodge obstacles. You can try to master one of his predefined seeds or try completely random ones. Ultimately, this glorified mobile game didn't hold my fragile attention span for more than 2 hours. I did manage to get an unbeatable world record though. You'll see that at the top if you flip the leaderboard upside down. The next game has wheels, but it's a really cool racing platformer with gravity elements. From the start, this sense lets you know about its atmosphere. If you're one of the people who judges games based on graphics, then I guess you found a perfect racing game. As for the gameplay though, I didn't like the main campaign at all. But only because it was made for modern audiences. I kept playing the game afterwards and it got much better. You have primary boost for forward thrust, grip boosters to push you downwards, pitch and roll control in air, a flying mode with yaw, and of course jumping. The game gives you so much control. Do I wish the camera was faster and had an FOV option? The core gameplay revolves around jumping from platform to platform and avoiding obstacles, like lasers that literally cut your car in half, and you can still drive it. There are hundreds of workshop tracks that push the game mechanics to their limit. A surprising amount considering the community's size and the complexity of working with the game's level editor. I'm not fully done with Distance and plan to come back to it later. I've seen many things, but I've yet to come across a corner. Now what if we take Distance's concept and give it to one of the biggest gaming companies? We get a complete disaster. Enter Fortnite Rocket Racing. If we count this as a racing game, then I would consider it to be even worse than Forza Motorsport. It should be mentioned that I only played this on the launch day and don't care how much it has improved since then, cause the core gameplay is flawed on so many levels. Let's start where we left off. Corners. Where are they? The tracks are so incredibly wide, you can take everything flat out with little steering. This is where drifting comes in. You're supposed to drift to get a speed boost out of the corners. Wait a minute, if drifting gives you a speed boost, why don't we drift on the straights as well? And that's what everyone above the age of 5 figured out within the first 5 minutes. You know, just because Mario Kart is the highest grossing racing franchise doesn't mean it's also the best one. You don't see every shooter copying Call of Duty. Now the races come down to who's the best at Arab drifting and breaking out of bounds. There's a reason why even F-Zero GX has a separate category for this tactic. It's not fun, makes no sense, takes little skill, and is exhausting to perform on a gamepad. And no, just like Mario Kart, the amount of people mastering something stupid doesn't make it any better. Not even being attached to Fortnite could save this game's player count from taking a huge nosedive right after launch, and the player base has only been dwindling since then. Good thing we didn't need rocket racing, because we already had Hot Wheels Unleashed from 2 years prior. Here, you have full aerial rotation, with boost giving you forward thrust. Rocket League players who are disappointed with rocket racing will feel right at home here, because the checkpoints are so poorly placed you can fly across most maps. At least the game gives you a track editor to solve this issue. Most racing game track editors will only let you choose between a select amount of pre-made objects, heavily limiting their potential. AGRs on the other hand, usually use a point-based system that, although flexible, can be difficult to work with. Hot Wheels, however, has a track editor that is both capable and easy to use. You can place obstacles with ease and shape the track however you want. Except, you can change the width, which I'm assuming is because of some bullshit brand image reason. On the track, Unleashed uses the controversial brake-to-drift handling, where drifting gives you an artificial lateral thrust, making it the optimal way to take corners. And this pairs amazingly with Hot Wheels tracks. Brake-to-drift is a perfect match for large radius corners. Not for sharp 90-degree city intersections. You'll learn nothing from 10 years of racing flop after slop after flop. Cringy rappers and nostalgia bait aren't going to make your racing game better when the core gameplay is defective from the get-go. Obligatory NF shitting over. Hot Wheels Unleashed brought something new to a genre that was starting to feel stale, but it still had a long way to go with lots of room for improvement. So here comes Hot Wheels Unleashed 2, and it improves on basically nothing that matters. A new sticker editor, less cuttable track, and a much less grindy car progression were the only positive changes. Not even a simple speedometer. I mentioned it and vehicle stats a lot, not because we pay huge attention to it, but because we want to find out if the developers know what the fuck they're doing and if they're trying to fake speed or not. Because no game has ever had wildly inaccurate vehicle stats, and no one would go as far as to fake a speedometer. Right? Most other additions were useless gimmicks that could have been added with updates. Multiplayer races on user-generated tracks were some of the most fun you could have in the first game, but here, the multiplayer is less stable, has no party system, and was dead on launch, with an 85% decrease in player count compared to the first game. They did fix some of the issues later on, but it was already too late. The Accelerated DLC added nothing but useless nostalgia bait, and right now, the franchise is looking like it's going to end up with the same fate as the movie its expansion was based upon. Okay, we deviated way too much from anti-gravity racing. Some of these games weren't even on the list and I just wanted an excuse to talk about them. It's done now. The next episode should cover every remaining game released until late 2024. Thanks again to War Thunder for sponsoring this video. Play it now for free on PC, PlayStation, Xbox, and mobile by clicking the links down below. New and returning players who haven't played for 6 months on PC and consoles will also receive a free bonus pack, which includes premium vehicles, in-game currency, and more.